Director of Customer Success, joined by my colleague Drew, who is the VP of Marketing. Today, we're going to talk about something that we get a ton of requests for from clients, and that's customer feedback. We can build out a survey to basically understand what your customer is thinking. Would they recommend you, AKA a Net Promoter Score? So we're actually going to walk through that survey live. We've actually done a survey recently with Nifty PM. They're actually going to make a guest appearance in this video to tell us more about how they used Chorus and what features they really enjoyed. So let's kick things off. So Drew, as the VP of Marketing, you obviously want to have an understanding of customers and what they're looking for. Are they enjoying the product? Are they enjoying the service? Talk to me about why this type of survey is so important.
Yeah, it's obviously, it seems obvious. You want satisfied customers, and satisfied customers are probably going to be some of your best salespeople, but you can really gather a lot more insight and do a lot more damage with these types of surveys than I think most people anticipate. As you mentioned, the Nifty PM team did a really great job, and we'll hear from them here shortly. But one of the unique things that they did, which I truly enjoyed, was they focused on the top 3 components of their product that their customers couldn't live without. And so this is a perfect example of getting a little bit more nuanced data, and then thinking about those things that you might want to put front and center on your website, the things that you might want to do a video walkthrough about, or campaign messaging that you might want to then start testing, because these are things that people seem to be latched on to and find tremendous value in. And by focusing on can't live without as opposed to things that I like, you actually get a little bit better insight into kind of behavioral economics, as it were, in terms of how people think about those things that are imperative to their workflow, imperative to their day-to-day, and frankly, that pain of potentially losing the ability to use those types of things generally outweighs a fun bell and whistle, as it were. So again, just like a very simplistic example there, but something really cool that you can do in these customer feedback surveys.
That's great. You touched on a lot of really great points, one of which was insights. What are you actually learning and obtaining? So in your perspective, do you enter into a survey? You mentioned that you want to make sure people are satisfied. Do you enter into a survey trying to ultimately understand what point you can get to understand if they are satisfied or not? Meaning, talk me through what insight specifically are you looking for when you do get customer feedback, and how do you take that and apply it to the marketing efforts that you're putting forth?
Yeah, it's another great question. So again, as with all of the surveys that we talk about, any of the walkthroughs that we do here, I think we kind of hammer home this idea of a little simplicity, trying to be very focused on what it is that you want to accomplish with your survey. So don't throw the kitchen sink in there, because people will get lost in the logic. Really go in with an objective. So again, using the example that we've been talking about here, the objective was to say, one, are our customers happy? And 2, what are the things that are making them the happiest? And in particular, what are the things that they have adopted as absolutely integral to their day-to-day work? So again, as a marketing director, and for those of you watching out there that are in a similar role, think about your product, think about your service, and really look at, okay, how do I want this to be perceived by the market, and how do I want people to be potentially integrating this into their day-to-day? And then let me structure some of my questions around that. Now, it might be very different. People might be using your product very differently than you anticipate. So leave your questions a little bit open-ended so you can get some of that insight. But again, you got to have some kind of structure when you start. You don't want to just ask people, hey, do you like us? Great. That's not going to be very helpful in the end.
Yeah, that's great feedback and insights. So Nifty PM, actually, let's talk through kind of the use case of how they found us. I know that you were kind of the one who led that relationship. So talk us through, what their initial request was and how it came to building out this survey.
Yeah, so a little bit of promotion of other platforms here. So We got connected via a Slack community called Online Geniuses, which again, if you're in the marketing field, it's a great community of online marketers, everything from SEOs to conversion rate optimizers to, jack of all trades. It's a great community, and so through that interaction, we started talking about how we might be able to utilize each other's platforms. Certainly, we do a lot of project management as a team, and they were looking to do a little bit more customer feedback. So it was a nice little marriage of opportunities. But what we did is kind of the same thing that we've been talking about to this point, which is to say, okay, what is it that you want to try to figure out? And they came at it from the perspective of, again, we want to learn what are the things that people are most in love with in our platform. And then we decided together, instead of phrasing it about, what are the things that you like, what are the things that you can't live without? What are those things that have become integral to your day-to-day workflow? Because those are the things that potentially you have the opportunity to charge a little bit more for. Maybe you make that part of a paid tier. Those are the things that your customers really have latched onto. So again, for everyone else out there, think about your product in that way. Think about your pricing tiers, and this is a really great exercise to potentially think about what things go in those higher tiers.
So one last piece on the Nifty side, we actually have a great blog post that's up. Drew, if you want to plug your blog post right now, that would be great.
Always willing to plug my post. So we'll show it here or here. I don't know where I'm going to superimpose it, but you can check it out at blog.cor.us. Not a tremendously long read, but I think a really insightful one. So please check it out. And obviously, feel free to throw any comments and suggestions in there as well.
Great. So without further ado, let's actually hop into Chorus. This video is a little bit unique. We've actually shown you guys finished products of what's happened in Chorus, including dashboard reviews, what we've done as far as our content surveys, the meatless meats and the fintech pieces. Those are also on this YouTube channel, so please check them out when you get a chance. Some great insights on those as well. So let's go over to our Chorus site. So we're going to be logged into our specific Chorus content org. Here, again, this is where the mastermind, Drew, comes up with all of the questions in relation to the content that we're going to be curating. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new survey. In this process, we're going to walk you through basically start to finish of what that survey will look like. This is a great chance for you to actually see the platform in action. I will apologize in advance for those of you that don't know, probably all of you. I live out in rural Colorado, and sometimes when the wind picks up, the internet is a little bit wonky. So it's more of a platform, it's more of a issue of me rather than the platform. So I will caveat that for everyone. So here we are in the survey. So this is the opportunity that you have to actually name your survey. So we're going to go ahead and call this customer feedback. You have the opportunity to change specific fonts if you, if your design team is very specific about the type of font that you use and everything. This would be a good opportunity for you to choose whatever font is closest to that, or if that font exists here, that's great. You want to make sure that all new questions are marked as required. We can walk through in the actual survey. If you want to have one that is unrequired, we can show you where to do that there. This is just a nice default to make sure that we're capturing as many responses as possible. You can also do question auto fade and auto scroll if that is a preference of yours. Again, that's more visual aspect. And then you have a variety of templates to choose from. We here at Chorus really favor our mountains, obviously being based in Colorado. That is something that we are all very drawn to. But there is also other varieties of colors that you have here as well. Mostly it's just, again, visual appearance. You can also select default language. If you were wanting to do, or if you have customers in multiple countries, like many of our clients do, you can also default the language here. So if we were doing a customer feedback survey specifically to Spain, we may want to type in Spanish and then choose the Spain flag over here. So let's go ahead and just as a quick example, show you. Obviously, Spanish is a very worldly language, and there's different countries that speak it all across the world, but let's just say specifically it was Spain. So that's an example, and again, you can change this back, not a problem. We even have different flags if you were doing English across different countries, which is great. And then you can also add a language. So for this survey, again, very simple. We're gonna pretend that this is for the US. That is this Nifty survey, for example, that we were assisting in creating. So once you hit save, it's gonna drop us right on a question page. So the way that Chorus is structured, there are different pages that can house different questions. Typically, this is going to generate how the user and respondent flow goes. So if we want one question per page, that's totally fine. If you have a bundle of questions that you feel you could place on one page, that is fine as well. More so, we just, like anybody, don't want to scroll for hours, and respondents feel that same way. So that's really what the point of the break is. Also, if you're applying any type of if logic, it is necessary to have those pages. So something that I always go in and do is actually name each of these individual pages. This is a great feature for when you're collaborating with other people. So if Drew and I, as we're going through the survey, if I say, hey, Drew, go to the page that's called initial feedback. It's just a way for us to be on the same page. Sometimes the questions, you add more questions in here than you do on maybe the Word doc that you're originally working out of. The whole purpose of Chorus is for everyone to be able to work directly into the platform. So again, this is a great way for you to collaborate. There's also an awesome video about that if you guys want to check it out. It's about collaboration, especially in the remote world that we're in right now. So to add a question, you simply just hover over this lovely add a new question right here. So based upon some of the thoughts that Drew had earlier, things about, are your customers satisfied? What nuggets can we really generate out? What are people enjoying, but necessarily what can't people live without? So to kind of warm people into the whole idea of providing this feedback, we can do a couple different ways here. We can start off with general questions that maybe you're looking to garner across your entire board. So let's say in this example, we're going to recreate the Nifty folks, just because we've given them a nice little overarching plug throughout this entire thing, and this is obviously fresh on our minds because they're clients that we recently worked with. So let's start with a single choice question here. And Drew, I'm going to lean on you a little bit. You know a little bit more about Nifty, so if there's things in here, especially when we get to the product part, that you recall, definitely feel free to chime in at any point. Yeah, so the way let's just start off with the very softball.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the way that you've structured this is great, because you can say, what is the number one product or number one feature that you can't live without, right? And so we can create a list of multiple features within the platform. So things like time tracking or milestones or whatnot in the example of Nifty. Again, for your own services, think about, building out a list of maybe, 5 to 10 different features that you often promote or talk about in your marketing messages and things like that, and then narrow it down and say, okay, well, I want to know what the top 2 are. If it's a list of 5, or if it's a list of 10, I want to know what the top 3 or 4 are. So that's a good way that you can kind of cull that. And then you could just replicate this question and say, what's the second, most important thing that I can't live without? What's the third most important thing?
Yeah, that's great. So I just created a very simple question. How long have you been a customer of Nifty PM? So I'm going to go ahead and hop into the advanced editor. Again, this is a glitch of my internet. It's not Chorus, I promise. So talk to me a little bit about Nifty. Is Nifty, have they been around for 10 years? Have they been around for 5 years, 3 years? What do you think the average span of a customer is? I'm just asking that. And just to give you folks an idea too, these are the types of questions that when you and I work together, I'll be asking you as well. I want to make sure that I have an understanding of your business, just so we're able to craft a message and make sure that we're on the same page. I don't want to go in and throw in a bunch of answers and you guys are like, whoa, we've only existed for 6 months. Like, I wish we had customers for 5 years. But again, it's just for us to be on that same page.
Yeah, so I would break that down into 3 months or less, 6 months, a year, and then a year plus. given the fact that they're a startup company, much like us, and I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of the length of being a client.
Yeah, great. So I'm just inserted all of those in. As you can see, it was live. It was happening as I was typing. I'm going to go ahead and select vertical answers. Typically, that's just a little bit easier for folks to digest if it's more than 2 answers, so they all appear vertically. Just really quickly in here, I know we've shown some of this, but there's ways to do redirects. So say that, you know, I'm assuming that we're obviously sending this to customer lists, correct? Lists that have already been curated that we have access to. But say if for some reason we also wanted to send out, you know, to people that maybe didn't know us yet, just to gather additional insights and feedback. If they were not a customer of PM or Nifty PM, we could go in here and basically disqualify them and terminate them. This is also a great place that if you wanted to ask a specific follow-up question, so say that they have been a customer for 6 or more months, maybe that's a great opportunity to say, hey, how did you like the new interface that we did in January? What were your thoughts on that? That would be a great place for you to insert that here. So only those people that have been customers for 6 or more months are able to answer that question. Another really important aspect here is to make sure that we add an export title. This is really important and crucial when you're doing your data download, because this will actually have all of the columns listed out by question. So you do not have to go in and read each individual question. It's just a nice little prompt to say, okay, great, that is that question. So we're gonna just say length of customer, and I'm gonna hit save. So again, that'll pop into our question here. I think a next question is very obvious, but I'm going to go ahead and add an additional page. So I'm going to go ahead and add a standard page. We're not doing a conjoint analysis here. So I'm going to do this one as the NPS. So as you guys know, a net promoter score, there's different ways to understand based, I believe it's in 3 variables of what a customer is to you, a detractor, an advocate, and forgive me, Drew, do you know the middle name? Promoter. Duh. Wow. Forgive me, folks.
It's you know, it's interesting because I think a lot of companies have different titles for these. So you might have, you know, a lot of companies talk about evangelists. These are you know, the absolute upper tier of promoters. These are the people that are going to bring in, you know, 3 or more additional customers. So you know, again, think about it through your own lens of how you look at these types of scores.
Great. So the question, of course, I'm going to do a single choice here again, as I did on the first question. But the net promoter score, how likely are you to recommend? Since we are going to tailor this one specifically around products, I am going to use products. There could be variables here, and feel free to insert as many or as likely of whatever object you're trying to identify, whether that be, you know, company as a whole, specific product, specific service. You can interchange this word. Again, I like to, we can also, there's different variations. You can do product to your friends or colleagues. I think that's an important distinction. If you're just doing colleagues, people may feel differently versus friends. Combining those two allows for you to truly get an understanding just across the board holistically how people are feeling. So again, also, I'm going to hit vertical.
Sorry to cut you off, Jillian, but also, you know, again, think about your business. Are you a retail store, and in which case, you know, maybe friends are the correct terminology here, or are you an enterprise software, in which case, yeah, you know, I don't know about you guys, but I'm not talking about enterprise software a ton with my friends. That's more of a, you know, talking with colleagues and people in the industry. So, you know, think again about where your service or product slots.
Yeah, great point. So I went ahead and did the export title as NPS. I went ahead and marked this as vertical answers. So we're on a scale here, a numerical scale. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, this scale can vary. You guys can go all the way up to 10. As Drew mentioned, remember what your company is looking for, and there's a lot of variety in terms of what people break down in different buckets of these scores. So a 1 to 2 may be a detractor, a 3 may be a promoter, a 4 and a 5 may be like an extreme promoter, however you guys are labeling that language. This, again, you can base that upon the numerical scale that you guys determine.
Yeah, and you generally, just to say, like, so that you know, detractor, passive, and promoter, you would generally not put those terms in there because, again, your respondents won't know. But to Jillian's point, you will know where people fall on that scale when you get the results.
Yeah, great point. We don't want to be calling people detractors up front, right? That is more so for the data analysis that comes. So again, just thinking about the back. It might like scare them, right? They might be like, I don't want to be a detractor. That sounds very negative. I love you guys. You never know. So there's the Net Promoter Score. Again, super easy. One thing that is also a capability within Chorus. So say that someone hits a 1. You know, that's very unlikely. They don't like your product. What we can actually do here is hit a redirect, and we can actually send them a follow-up question. So what you can do is hit redirect. We'll just select question, and then we're going to add a follow-up. And what that's going to do is actually prompt us to choose a different type of question, a question type. So typically for these answers, a lot of people like to know the why, and obviously why lends itself to a text response. However, if you have a very large pool of people that you're sending this to, text responses can get a little bit intimidating as far as a data analysis goes. In this perspective, I'm going to go ahead and just hit text, but also know that you could do select multiple choice or select single choice if there were things in your mind that you thought maybe were already unhappy with your customers. So to Drew's point, if you had done a survey prior and say that you really had a lot of feedback regarding the UX of your website, if you had made a large change to that, that may be still an object that people are unaware of. So that may be a list of options that you could select for people that maybe have chosen one. Again, it's really your preference. We'll go ahead and do text in this specific use case. Those are, again, things that you and I would talk through as we were continuing to build out your survey. So I'm going to go ahead and just hit this with a very simple question. Why are you unlikely to recommend this product? Again, make sure you speak to your data people or the person who's actually going to be combing through this survey. I know myself, when I have to go through surveys and someone suggests a text block, it always gets a little bit ooh to me because it's going to be a lot of different answers. You also have to remember respondents' attention span. If you're asking a ton of text questions, which in your mind you're like, I'm going to get such great feedback, unfortunately, people are very cautious with their time, and the longer you have a survey, the more questions you have, people may get a little bit lazy about what exactly they're typing out. So again, just a caveat, we'll talk through all of these elements more on a one-to-one basis. So there's the Net Promoter Score. We even have a redirect for why people may have selected a low score. So let's get into actual products and features. So Drew, from your perspective, and let's maybe switch gears and talk specifically about Chorus, but one thing that we like to do, obviously, is be nimble about, go ahead.
I was going to say one thing before we do that. If you could, Jillian, just show how to save that question. Because again, you know, a Net Promoter Score is often something that our customers run on an ongoing basis to see if the things that they're changing and adapting are having an effect. And we make it really easy, obviously, to save this so that you don't have to keep creating it every single time.
Yes, great point. So there's 2 different ways that we can actually save this. So again, if this is a survey that you're looking to send to your customers on a frequent basis, let's say monthly, quarterly, however you deem that, we could actually save the template as a whole for the entire survey. So that would be a way for you to go in, get the survey, create a new one, know that the data in the dashboard was applicable to that specific survey. But in this case, to Drew's point, let's actually just save this specific question to our question bank. So as you guys remember, a question bank is available and houses questions that are frequently used in different organizations. We've also applied a lot of different questions that are applicable across the entire Chorus universe, just because we've seen a lot of these questions be asked over and over. Again, this is supposed to be a feature of collaboration and also to be efficient. So what you'll go ahead and do is just hit this little cog wheel right here. You're going to select Save to Question Bank. This is actually the portion that you can deem where you would like the question to be seen. So is it going to be applicable only to you, your current organization, or all your organizations? Organizations, again, are places that you can house different types of surveys based upon client, based upon department, however you want to structure your own login or your overall company wants to structure their or organizations within Chorus. Again, so if I was, working at Nifty and I wanted something specific for the customer experience team, that might be one organization. If I wanted something specific to product, that might be one organization. So what I would suggest is this type of question I would save to all of my organizations. So any organization that I'm a part of, this question is then available to me. All right. Thank you for that prompt, Drew. Really appreciate that. So going back, as I was stating, let's switch gears and move it to Chorus. Something that we're always looking for is genuine feedback about our UX. Is this user-friendly? Are you able to find what you're doing? So in relation to types of product questions, what types of questions would you be wanting to know from a marketing perspective on how we would gear customer feedback in relation to those products and how you would ultimately turn around and market them? Maybe just talk through a specific example relating to our UX, just to give the folks a little bit of talk here.
Yeah, so again, I think there's a couple of ways that you can structure these types of questions. So you can either take the tack that we did with Nifty, which is to say, what is essentially integral, what can't you live without? Or you could just say, what are some of your favorite features as a part of our product suite? So certainly for us, some of the things that we get comments about are ease of use of the platform itself. We also get a lot of feedback about the language translation. This is a feature that is actually very challenging in some of our competition. So, those are areas where, again, as a marketer, and as I think about, the emails that we're sending out, the campaigns that we're building, the ads that we're building, I want to get some specific language from customers about why that's important. What are the challenges that they currently face? Why is this better? So diving into a couple specific services and really drilling down into why do you like this? Is it easier, the same, less intuitive than the other things that are out there? Is it faster, slower, same as our competition? Is it more expensive, less expensive, the same as our competition? So you can get pretty deep on each specific piece of your service or your product, which is again why in the beginning, I think you need to think about how you're architecting your survey from the get-go. In this case, the way that we've set this survey up, I would recommend, let's just pick 5 different types of features of our product and say, what are your 2 favorites? What are the 2 that you can't live without? And then as potentially a follow-up survey, we then dive into those specific features themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That's great. That highlights too, just again, the frequency of how often you can be in touch with your customers. A lot of the times we have clients that come to us and they want to ask a 50-question survey to really get that understanding of what their customer base is. Unfortunately, again, coming back to that attention span, that may not be the best use case, although we know that your customers are going to be the ones that have the most data and are going to be the ones that are most vocal. Unfortunately, that may just be a little bit intimidating. So to Drew's point, let's try and keep this one short. But again, the opportunity here is expansive. It's something that we really enjoy doing on our side because, as Drew mentioned, this is something that we do on a regular basis for our own platform.
Yeah.
So let's go back over to our app. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, the last thing I was going to add there is that, so, we've constructed this survey here, and it's obviously not all encompassing, and there's a lot more that we could add to it. But again, you want to start also thinking about how you're going to distribute it. So, is this something that I just want to send via an email? Is this something that I'm going to put across the board? I'm going to put on LinkedIn, I'm going to put on Facebook, I'm going to put on our website. We essentially give you the ability to just extract a URL that you can put anywhere that you want. So you could do all of those, you could just do one of those channels. But again, that might also dictate how complex the survey is, because you might say, look, I don't want to every single week be switching URLs on my website and LinkedIn and Facebook to get feedback. I just want this to be, one thing that's ongoing. So maybe we make it a little bit simpler, and we believe that we're going to have a larger respondent pool, or maybe this is just very, very targeted to certain tiers of individuals that have signed up for a higher paid tier, and so we're just going to specifically email it to them. So that's the last thing that I'll put in there as you're thinking about your structure, is how you're going to distribute it as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. Typically, distribution is something that gets talked about after the survey has already been created, but it is something to always have in the forefront of your mind. Are people going to be likely to take a 5-question survey off of LinkedIn? Probably. Are they going to take a 50-question survey off of LinkedIn? Probably not. Maybe if you're super passionate about the product and you really want to get your feedback out there, which we hope that everybody has brand advocates, which obviously they do. Again, it's just really important to think about that perspective as you're building out your survey. So to come back, let's go ahead and do the product features. So what I'm going to do here, as Drew mentioned, is let's actually ask the question and select a multiple choice answer, meaning that you can select multiple answers in relation to the types of products that people are very passionate about. So let's say, and also in this use case, let's break it into 2. So I'm going to say, what products are currently available within your Nifty plugin? As many platforms, and Drew maybe can speak more eloquently about this, there may be different levels that are available to every user. So this is, again, a good opportunity to assess a couple different data points here. So one, you can see what products customers are currently using, and then you can also see and maybe do a little bit of testing. If there's a product here that you maybe want to launch or you're thinking about launching, maybe you can slide in another question with like, hey, what do you think about this? Again, pretty limitless here.
This is a good opportunity to hear from our friends at Nifty about one of the features of their product.
What milestones are the different kind of goals of our project, or really phases, another way to think about it. And within each of these milestones are the tasks that we need to accomplish to get there. So we can see when we complete tasks, we get a little closer to our goal of completing this milestone. If the date is overdue, we see this turns red, and now we can really easily move these around. And so there's a lot of flexibility and value in these, because you're able to see where you stand and quickly adjust that. So let's say, oh, we got feature 6. Here's a new task. Create it really quickly, or like instantly. And it could be as easy as a checklist where you go through and knock these off and you get that bar moving. You'll see that we automatically give a due date, that of the end date of the milestone, and that's to make your life a little easier, so you don't have to go through and give each of these tasks a specific.
So let's see here. Again, Drew, if you wouldn't mind walking me through, I would assume a PM system, probably time management, collaboration is probably important.
Yeah, absolutely. So they call it time tracking, but yeah, time management. They have a feature called discussions, which is their collaborative Slack type messaging tool within the platform. They have another feature called milestones, which is a way of tracking the success of a project as it's ongoing. And so those are three things that we want to put in there. Three things that are not in our blog, in our blog post as in terms of features. They have reporting tools. They have a doc and file upload and download feature. They have a reporting feature. So for superiors and subordinates to be able to kind of sign off on reports and things like that. So again, you could make a list of 5 or 6 and ask for pick from them.
Great. So I went ahead and just listed out questions, did my expert title, and selected these as vertical answers. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. So again, this question is asking what products are currently available. So the next question I want to ask is what products are you currently using? Again, this is getting a little bit more in depth about the actual user interface and what people are engaging with. So to make it super simple, because all of these answers are going to be the exact same for the next question, I'm actually going to duplicate this question. So if you just select this cogwheel and hit duplicate, you can easily do that. This again is just, again, to be time efficient. So as you can see here, it basically drops the exact same question down, but it has a copy at the end of it. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is just delete this copy at the end, and I'm going to switch out available for using. And that's really where we're going to start to get to the grain of what people can't live without. So there's a couple different ways that we can approach this here. If you want, if for example, it sounds like Nifty has different levels within each of these types of things. So reporting tools can be both an external and an internal thing. Maybe we want to get down to the nitty gritty of why that specific tool is important to folks. We can ask a redirect within each of these individual questions. We also can get into the rating system that Drew mentioned, which is super important. So not only can, what are you using, but what would you be disappointed in if Nifty got rid of? There's different ways to ask those questions. So again, I'm going to go ahead and just duplicate this question, and we're going to change the actual question, leaving the answers the same. So we're gonna steal a little bit.
I was going to say, this is one where you could even change it to just select a single choice. And then when you get your respondent pool, you just take the top 3 answers, right? So you're effectively asking somebody to pick what's the number 1 thing that they've integrated into their day-to-day. And then you take the top 3 choices or the top 2, and you say, those are the 2 things, obviously, we should devote our time to promoting and talking about, maybe explaining further, because these seem to be the things that people have latched onto.
Yeah, great point. And we can still easily do this with what we just did in duplicating the question. So I went ahead and changed what products did you not live without. So I'm going to go ahead and do advanced editing. And to Drew's point, this again is a place where you can select, and when you're doing your data analysis, just select, okay, great. Time management, discussions, and milestones were the top 3 things that were selected, as they truly were, if you guys get the chance to read that blog post. But in here, we can basically have a single choice question, and then in your data analysis and also within the dashboard, you'll be able to see those at different tiers and get to a percentage breakdown of what exactly people were looking for in this response. So in Advanced Editor, this is one of the question types that you are able to change into another question type. We believe that sometimes after you're done typing a question, just as we were here, it's like, hey, actually, this would make better sense as this type of question. So instead of having to recreate the question all over and doing it all over again, you can actually select the question type and change it here. Now, I will caveat that with, you cannot change certain question types to any type of question, but really the ones that are still applicable within the same format. So single choice, multiple choice questions, again, those are two that are pretty interchangeable. It's just selection of how many you can choose within the actual question answers. You cannot change a multiple choice into a text question, for example, or a no response. There's different variations. And if you ever have a question about that, we actually have a great article up on our help site that talks about what types of questions and what can be changed in between each of those. So I will go ahead and change the question type here to single choice list. Something else that's best practice in single choice list is this randomization. So the same respondents aren't seeing the same order over and over again. One thing to also note is when you do duplicate a question, you have to change the export title based upon that specific question. So what products do you not without? So we'll say top products. And then we'll go ahead and hit save down here. And then I'm going to go back and name this. This is really our product feature. And see, I didn't hit vertical. So as you guys can see, when you don't select vertical, it just is a little bit intimidating to look at. It almost looks a little bit unclear. So you always want to make sure that you hit that vertical answer, again, if you have more than two. So this is really the meat of this survey. So what I'm going to do is, again, add one additional follow-up, and this is typically where everybody gets super excited. But just, one question, are there any, do you have any additional comments or feedback regarding said product or platform? Again, talk to the people that are going to be doing your data analysis. You don't want to do an open-ended question if there is going to be 1,000 responses. Truly, it's dependent on the person and how much sifting and how much data analysis time that they have to do this. But again, I'm going to go ahead and just plop in a text question here. I'm going to name my page. All right. This is a great place if you are starting out, if you're unsure of what your customers are thinking. This is a great place to come in. This is also an awesome place to grab little snippets of testimonials. So you can and make them anonymous. I'm just going to say that word, could not say the other one, and place them on your guys' website, right? I love using this platform. This platform saved my life. The ease of use is so incredible. Those are things that we get to hear, and we love to hear that type of feedback. So again, those are things that other people are looking for in states of reviews, when they're searching out websites. So again, just a little shameless plug here. So we'll put this in. Another really quick trick that I haven't showed you guys is in this cogwheel, you can actually just label in your export title right here. So if you're going through and doing your searches and you're like, oh man, I can't remember if I did that, you can just do a quick click right here and see if there's an export title. Also, as I mentioned at the beginning when we were choosing the survey appearance, right here is also a button where you can select if this question is required or not. So if for some reason you would not want to get an answer, or you're doing it more on a volunteer basis, you can actually uncheck this and it will not be required for respondents, meaning that they can submit without actually inputting in an answer. So there we go. This is our basic customer feedback survey. Again, this is very much so kind of ground level of what we could really do. If you have a customer feedback survey that you guys are looking to do, please email support@co.uk US. Would love to get in touch with you and connect on how we can build a specific survey just for you guys. Even just going through this, as you can see, Drew's brain is very much so in the marketing world and what insights he's going to gain. I'm more so, what can I learn from a customer experience feedback side? So it's really about combining those worlds and ensuring that you're building a survey that's successful for all parties to gain data points. Drew, do you have any other comments? Again, thank you for joining. You're such a great asset to our Keys to Success videos, so I really appreciate that. But anything else?
I think that was phenomenal. I would love to hear in the comments if these more walkthrough style videos are helpful. We did this on purpose to be a little bit different from some of the previous episodes. Also, just want to mention that we do have, we'll have another video coming out shortly. We heard in our own feedback survey from a number of you that you would like to see global panel distribution A/B testing. So that video will be coming out shortly as well. So subscribe to the channel, sign up for the newsletter. You'll get the updates there as well. And thank you, Jillian, as always. I think this was phenomenal. Great job.
Thanks. Well, thank you guys. We really appreciate it. As you guys have probably gathered, this is a weekly cadence, so really looking forward to continuing this series. As Drew mentioned, there will be a link in this specific YouTube video about commentary in relation to, it'll be a survey about additional videos that you guys would like to see, and we definitely want to hear back from you. We're taking that feedback and garnering all of our video content. So really appreciate it, and we'll see you guys next time.